Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahma Kalpa Upagate Praha, he said, Bhagavatam, the science of the personality of Godhead. Nama, of the name. Puranam, the supplement of the Vedas. Brahma Samitam, just in pursuance of the Vedas. Brahmane, unto Lord Brahma. Bhagavat Proktam, was spoken by the personality of Godhead. Brahma Kalpe, the millennium in which Brahma was first generated. Upagate, just in the beginning. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Pariksit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature, and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Please repeat. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Pariksit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature, and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of the personality of Godhead. The impersonalist always tries to misrepresent the personal feature of the Lord, not knowing the science of this great knowledge. And Srimad Bhagavatam is in pursuance of the Vedas and scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. To learn this science, one should take shelter of the representative of Sri Sukadev and follow in the footsteps of Maharaj Pariksit without foolishly attempting to interpret, thereby committing a great offence at the feet of the Lord. The dangerous ways of interpretations by the non-devotee class of men have played havoc in understanding the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the careful student should be always alert in this matter if he at all wants to learn the science of Godhead. Omigyan timarantasya gananjana shalakaya chakshusum militam jena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, he forced my eyes open with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto him. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvayevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Science is not supposed to be speculation. It's not supposed to be imagination. Perhaps, maybe, in the future, we will understand. Science is based on facts. Things that can be repeated. A scientific experiment is you set up in your laboratory Your laboratory could be in your own consciousness, could be in the world, could be in over 50 years. That's your laboratory. And the time is something that can be replicated. It will take 3 minutes. It will take 10 years. This is the nature of the experiment. And the conditions, the temperature has to be like this, it has to be with these type of ingredients that are of a certain strength, and then they have to be combined. And then even now in quantum science, quantum mechanics, they take into assessment what they're thinking about at the time, because that will determine some of the results, that will affect the results. And I was conscious that my wife was going to the hospital this morning, and so I was in a bit of anxiety. So how that will determine, so all of those things have to be clear and put into place. And then a predictable result can be repeated. That's scientific method based on, it's controlled. There's 3 letters: controlled atmosphere, controlled time, controlled ingredients. It's under control. We can't control the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We can't control even the blinking of our own eyelids. We're completely out of control. So how are we going to approach the science of the personality of Godhead in a scientific way without interpretation? We have to take shelter of the acharyas, those self-realized souls who have seen the truth. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. Such a self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto us because they've seen the truth. Tattvadashi. They've had darshan of the truth. The truth has been revealed to them. If you want to know somebody, then you have to get close to them. You have to please them. You have to inspire them, and after some time they'll bring you in to their little world, and they'll reveal to you their secrets. Otherwise it's just speculation. Oh, they're like that. Look at them. They've got this funny haircut. They're dressed like this. They walk like this. They're proud. They're slovenly. They're all external. We're speculating. You get close, you can get a good idea by observation. You can get a good idea what you're going to deal with by using your senses of observation. But to then come to a conclusion, that this is the nature of reality. David Ridaswami was saying a definition of pride: to think that your senses are telling you is reality. Oh, I heard this, I believe that, so therefore I'm going to act upon that premise. But so often it lets us down. Whereas the science of the personality of Godhead is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the words used here, Brahma Samitam. It's not Brahma Samhita, it's Brahma Samitam. Brahma means the absolute truth. Brahman, the absolute truth, which is often impersonal representation of the absolute truth. Brahman, we take shelter of the supreme Brahman, the supreme absolute truth. Brahman, spirit, can be interpreted as a person, as a localized Paramatma form, giving directions, or as an all-pervasive, impersonal energy. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So depending on how much we are conversant in the science, we will accept a certain level of the truth. An all-pervasive aspect, a localized aspect giving directions and orders, or a personality who has likes and dislikes according to our understanding the depth of our intelligence, the steadfastness of our faith. That will determine how much we have access to this science of the truth about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhitam, is in pursuance of the Vedas. In pursuance of the Vedas. There's the Vedas, it means knowledge. Veda means knowledge. So the not just abstract knowledge, but substantial, concise knowledge. It's said that the original 4 Vedas, there are copies of them in libraries. I think there's one in Calcutta. And it's a vast volume of literature, filling up rooms and rooms and rooms, the original 4 Vedas. The Vedas then are commented upon. They're presented in different ways. There's the original Vedas, then there's the Upavedas, the supplementary Vedas. In totality, there's 14 areas of Vedic literature. And the Puranas, they are histories. They're histories. The Puranas are actually the easiest way to access the Vedas in this day and age. The Puranas are histories. They tell stories about what happened in the past and who was related to who and how this event occurred and what was the circumstance. So the Puranas are divided into 3 sections. Puranas for those in the mode of ignorance, Puranas for those in the mode of passion, and Puranas for those in the mode of goodness. This Srimad Bhagavatam is also known as the Bhagavad Purana, and that's classified as one of the Sattvic Puranas. Bhagavad Purana, and also Amalam, pure. It's completely pure, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in pursuance of the Vedas, as the Vedas were developed, originally they were one, and then in order to try and unravel all of that knowledge which is there in the one Veda, then it was divided into 4. The Rig, the Yajur, the Atharva, Samaveda. And generally, as categories, they deal with different aspects of Vedic knowledge. How to chant mantras, how to perform rituals, the situations which rituals are performed. The Samaveda is the different songs. And the Atharva Veda is the other areas, the how to maintain your health, how to examine the influence of the planetary bodies, the stars. Different Vedic areas. And then even within those Vedas, there are not just one section. Some people, there's another way of dividing up the Vedas. There's the Karma Kanda, the Jnana Kanda, and the Upasana Kanda. Karma Kanda means fruitive activities, the area which describes the rules and regulation of fruit. 90% of the Vedas are dealing with that subject. How to perform your actions, how to not become entangled in the results of your activities, how to not get bound up by your actions. Breathing. If you breathe, then there's so many reactions. Millions of living entities are going in and they're getting cooked in the fire. You're involved in killing just by breathing. So how to avoid the reaction, or how to put it into its proper context. Jnana Kanda, meditation, knowledge. Jnana Kanda. I'm no longer worried about how the body works. I'm worried about how I contemplate, how my mind works, how I perceive reality. The body is pretty much regulated. I can now move on. I can include that aspect more prominently. So much of the time is concerned with just keeping the body fit and healthy and fed and washed and in the proper situation so we can do the other activities in our life. Once that's pretty well become routine, then we can start to purify, clarify, focus, work on our meditation. And then meditation can become deeper, can become fixed. There's the 8 steps of yoga. After pranayama, pratyahara, then there's dhyana. Dhyana is meditation. Dharana is more fixed meditation. And finally that comes to the level of samadhi, total absorption in the object of your meditation. So meditation within the Vedas is not recommended to be on an impersonal light, candle, just an abstract, impersonal. Meditation is recommended to be on a form, on the form of the Lord, on the source of everything who has a form. Sat-chit Ananda Vigraha. Vigraha means form. Sat, Chit and Ananda. Does everybody understand Sat, Chit and Ananda? Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means eternal. Eternality. What's fixed? What's eternal? The opposite of eternal is temporary. In Sanskrit, if you put an A in front of it's the opposite. So Sat, Asat. So this material world is temporary, not eternal. Sat, Chit. Chit means knowledge. Chit is related to Chaitana, the heart, knowledge, realization within the heart. Chit, knowledge. And Ananda. Ananda, everybody's searching for happiness. Happiness is relative, it comes and goes. The happiness immediately behind happiness is distress. If you're feeling extremely happy, you should be conscious, well, I'm on the top. Soon after, then the distress will follow. But Ananda is a different quality of happiness. It's classified as bliss. Bliss, satisfaction, neither happiness or distress from the interaction of the material, but satisfaction, bliss, from realizing Sat, Chit, our eternal situation, and the fact that we are part and parcel of Krishna. We're full of knowledge. We have access. We have all that knowledge within us. And then Vigraha. Vigraha, form. It's not just energy. It's not just energy, eternal energy. It's personality, who is possessed of all. At the moment, we don't live in that situation. We live in a world which is Asat, Achit and Nirananda. It's temporary, full of ignorance, and it's miserable. The 90% of the world's energy, not 90%, it's 50% I think, is used to counteract the extremes of temperature. It's too hot, we'll turn the AC on. It's too cold, turn the heater up. Got to use energy to try and adjust all of the disturbances, the miseries that are there. So that's the world we live in. But the spiritual, eternal reality is different. Personality, again, to conceive that the Supreme is a person, not like us. We struggle with understanding what we as persons are, what personality actually is. Because there's variety, there's individuality, there's so much subtlety, emotions and desires and feelings and relationships and connections, and those things are complicated. So some people, after struggling with being a person, they come to the conclusion, well, I just want to merge. I want to give it up. It's not working. It's too tough. Let me blot it all out. That's not a scientific solution. The person who we're talking about, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. He doesn't forget. He's eternal. He's full of knowledge. So hearing from somebody who has been exposed to such information, who has practically put that knowledge into practice, who has lived that reality, and then not necessarily but started to become convinced, and become most convinced, and become completely committed to serving that reality, to spreading that reality. When we come into contact with such a person, then it starts to become tangible. It becomes more and more tangible. It becomes addictive. I don't want to be involved in this temporary reality. I choose to cop out, to escape the temporary nature of the world, and to buy into a permanent, happy, satisfied, blissful concept of life. That's just the beginning. That's Shraddha. That's Shraddha. There's 8 steps in developing our full relationship with God, from Shraddha to Prem. Shraddha, we develop some faith, and then we want to associate Shraddha to Bhajana Kriya. We start to think that we should associate with such people. Here in the purport it says, if to learn the science, one should take shelter of the representative of Sri Sukadeva and follow in the footsteps of Maharaj Parikshit, without foolishly attempting to interpret, thereby committing a great offence at the feet of the Lord. So we start to buy into, we start to think this is a good way. These are happy people, I want to be happy, let me just associate with these people. Just like you're known by your association. If you're a miserable old coot, then you'll tend to have no associates, or you'll have other people of a similar nature that you feel comfortable with. If you're a bit of a loner, sometimes it's nice to be more, self-contained and introverted and contemplative. But you have to be able to deal with other people. And if you're surrounded by a bunch of joyful, enthusiastic, on fire people, then you can understand that you're in the right place in order to affect a change in everything, in your own consciousness, your own life, the lives of those people who are surrounding you, and a broader perspective, broader aspect. So you start to associate, and you start to inquire. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Spiritual master, we all need a spiritual master. We all need guidance. We all need a teacher. We all need somebody to enlighten us. If we just rely upon the present day sources of enlightenment, such as the internet and the news and the politicians, the media, then we will be confused and more confused and heartbroken and let down and left in a pile, becoming more and more fearful, worried about coming close to other people, worried about so many things. Where our next meal's going to come from. So, one who is intelligent, they can understand that imperfect sources of knowledge, imperfect sources of information, they're not going to give much long-term benefit. We need to find a perfect source of information. We need to find an infallible source of information. We need to find a system which is scientific, which is based on actual science, which not what's happening now, junk science. You pay some so-called, probably used to call it the so-called rascal scientists, to pay them some money, and they can produce some results that will back up the thing that you're trying to sell, or the thing you're trying to prove. That's junk science. And they're easily bought off. The actual scientists with integrity, then they're rare. But we need to find those personalities. We need to find that source. Even in the realm of philosophy, when we were studying in Mayapur, they use a particular method. They try to introduce 12 different values into your system of study. And one of those items, the 12 items, is known as academic integrity. Academic integrity. It's because academics can quote and misquote and not act upon the principles that they've been studying. Their lives are compromised. I was speaking to my father and mentioned something about how to help to reduce the present domestic violence situation, and he said it'd be nice to hear those words coming out of the mouth of our leaders here. But even if it came out of their mouths, we wouldn't believe it. Often many things are proposed, but then you look around, where's the results? Where's the follow-up? Where's the actual putting it into practice? Politics is about band-aid solutions. There's an epidemic somewhere, or there's somebody who's got an injury. Let's throw some money at it. Let's put up a foundation. Let's make a policy. Let's develop something. But it's not addressing the issue. We did so many good things, but it's even. I'm not sure whether it was Prabhupada, but I was talking about Mahatma Gandhi. Many people, Mahatma Gandhi, he was a great saint. He was quite a good politician. He promised everybody that follow me, and in a year we'll be independent. 30 years later, something came about, and it created one of the greatest slaughters in the history of mankind. When the Hindus and the Muslims, they got their individual places, their Pakistan, their Hindustan, and as they shifted from one place to another place, they would meet the opposition. They were killing each other. So the solutions which are being offered, band-aid at the best, and they're not actually dealing with the real problem. So the science and those expressions, they have to be backed up with personal growth, personal change, personal attentiveness to detail. Here, the careful student should be always alert in this matter if he at all wants to learn the science of Godhead. One of the major points in this verse and purport is to not misinterpret. So, when our senses are imperfect, when we're subject to illusion, when we make mistakes, and we have the cheating propensity, we've got to be alert. Are those things creeping in? Is that the way? Is that our modus operandi? Do we accept? Are we committed to hearing properly these messages and putting them into practice? Or do we fudge? Do we doubt? Do we make comments? Individually, we can see that it takes some time to develop that level of faith. And even Prabhupada had many advanced students, and there was one opportunity. They were watching the first moon landing, and Prabhupada was not so inspired like everybody else. We've landed on the moon. He said, "What's happening? What does it look like?" And those people who were most enthusiastic, "Oh, it's like this. It's got all these things. It's got rocks and dust, and it's amazing." And Prabhupada said, That's not the moon. The moon, as described in the Vedic literatures, is alive. It's flowing with so much life. There's grasses there which emit this effulgence. It's a heavenly body. So that student, he lost faith. He became disillusioned. He didn't accept the authority of his spiritual master. And Prabhupada said, I could understand that he didn't want to accept what I said, but to not accept the authority of the Vedas, he couldn't believe that. The Veda, in years gone by, somebody said, you were giving a statement, this is such and such, if you do like this, if you take cow dung, which is smelly and contaminated, but if you smear it on the walls of the house or on the floor, that place becomes purified. Oh, how is that possible? Well, the Vedas say so. It was just, okay, if the Vedas say so, I'll accept it. And people do it, and it creates such a wonderful atmosphere. And then now science, modern day science, has backed it up. They've analysed what's there in the cow dung, and they've discovered that it's antiseptic, purifying. One of our devotees, he did a food handling course. And he'd been handling cow dung day and night for months. It was in his fingers, all the creases were ingrained with cow dung. And all the other students, they took a little swab of the germs off their skin and put it in a petri dish and cultivated it. And all these little bugs came up, even though they'd scrubbed their hands and all this sanitization, they were doing all the proper cleansing. But with our devotee friend, nothing grew. The cow dung there was antiseptic. All the bugs had been purified. That's the Vedas. So we can misinterpret. We can lose faith. We can speculate. There's two types of speculation. Mental speculation. In Melbourne we had benches like that. They were just outside the temple, and devotees would sit out there and they'd be speculating, they'd be talking, they'd be shooting the breeze. So those benches became known as the mental platform. Oh, they're on the mental platform. It's pastime, speculating mentally. There's another type of speculation, and that's philosophical speculation. How is it that this philosophy gives this sort of direction? How is it? And I'm not sure whether this is philosophical, but it's an aspect of philosophy. We understand that Hamsa, the swan-like devotee, swan-like person, Paramahamsa, very elevated. One of the aspects of the analogy of being like a swan is that a swan can separate milk from water. So I heard about it and contemplated it and speculated about it philosophically. Once we were just about to leave our camping place and we had some milk left over, and there was a lake and there were swans in there, so I went and just poured the milk into the water, and these swans came up after some time. The milk was dispersing, but the swans came up and went with their beaks and extracted the milk from the water. They took in the water into their mouths, and they have got little, in the sides of their beaks, they've got little grooves, and the water was expressed out through there, and the milk went in. So that confirms in a scientific experiment how that philosophy works. But to just speculate and say, well, it might work or it might not work, I don't believe it. The words of my spiritual master, he told me, he gave me an order to do like this and like this, but it's too much. It's extreme. He's not. Prabhupada told Mukunda Maharaj, this old wrecked windmill on the beach, you should approach the authorities and tell them, if you give us this property, we'll renovate it. And Mukunda Maharaj didn't act upon it immediately. He thought, oh, hang on, that's just fanciful thinking, it's too much. Later, somebody else did it, and they renovated it, and it looked wonderful. So to not take the words of the spiritual master, to speculate, to doubt, oh, hang on, I better hold back, I've got to keep something for me. What's the profit in it for me? How am I going to benefit? Philosophical speculation, mental speculation, speculating about the philosophy, in learned circles, discussing the philosophy. How does that work? That's healthy. Just like I was hearing Prabhupada, he was saying the nature of the world is sense gratification. The true nature of reality is sense gratification. Sense gratification is the goal of life. If you're trying to please your senses, that's material, that's temporary. The residents of the spiritual world, they're engaged in sense gratification, but they want to please Krishna's senses. Their goal is to serve Krishna, to please the Supreme Absolute Truth, to please his senses. It's a little change in focus. A little change in focus. When we're looking through the lens of the camera, or we're trying to get the radio station, if we're not spot on, it's out of focus, it's blurry, it's fuzzy, and we're just looking through and we can't see clearly. But if we adjust the lens, we adjust the focus, we can see clearly. That's spiritual reality. That's the science. It's there. We just have to adjust our vision. Nectar Devotion is an example of, you're in the darkness. Come out of the darkness into the light. There's another encouragement from the Vedas. We're in darkness. Come out from the darkness into the light. We're in a room, it's dark. We're going to bump into things. It's dangerous. There could be a cobra there. We don't know what's going on. We just go and turn on the light. Oh. It's light. I can see things as they are. Krishna, Surya, Sun, Maya, Haya, Andhakar. When the sun rises, all the fog and the darkness and the illusion and the ignorance is dispelled. So when we put the reality in the centre of our lives, when we understand who is Krishna, we see Krishna, then we can see ourselves properly. Until that time, we're doubtful, we're interpreting, we don't know. And in terms of philosophy with the Bhagavatam, that individual vagueness gets translated into a village, a country, a nation, a whole world's vagueness of doubt and illusion. The classic Mayavadi impersonalist interpretation of this knowledge of the Absolute Truth is that we're all one. It's all one. So that's created havoc within society. Impersonalism, misinterpreting the actual reality, the actual truth. So to learn from those people who have tried to approach the truth, there's Manushyanam Sahasrastu. Out of many millions of people, hardly one knows the truth. So we have to try and seek out that source of uncompromising, crystal clear, pure knowledge. And Prabhupada wrote a book, Renunciation Through Wisdom, and one of the chapters was entitled Pure Devotion Resides in Pristine Truth, in pristine knowledge. So when the knowledge is pristine, is clear, then the devotion can arise. We have to remove the obstacles, clear away the dust, so we can see clearly. Srimad Bhagavatam should be a daily practice. It's in pursuance of the Vedas. It's the natural commentary by the author on the Vedanta Sutra, which is the conclusion of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra. Srimad Bhagavatam is the most accessible. The Puranas, it's in the form of stories and pastimes, and most accessible. So on a regular basis we can hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and we can work out what sort of level of realization we're on, whether we're on Brahman platform, Paramatma platform, or Bhagavan platform, by how we relate to people, to the deities, to other devotees, to ourselves, in an all-pervasive impersonal aspect. It's all spiritual, or in a more localized, this is a person, I can ask them what they like for breakfast and how I can serve them, to the Supreme Person. How to make our whole lives focused on bringing pleasure to Krishna, who's a person. One of the most important aspects of deity worship, to just understand that Krishna is a person. He's not just a machine for sanctifying food. He's a person. He has likes and dislikes. So to come to that realization, to act upon that, to live that realization, then we can understand that we're starting to approach the Bhagavan platform. So I'll just read the verse again and we'll see if anybody's got any inquiry. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Any questions or any comments? Asu, I'll put the microphone up. Oh, here it is.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your class. Maybe I'll just make one comment, one question. One comment what you were saying about, sometimes we see some what is called trip lines that we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we see something that might shake our foundation of what we're conditioned to learn and everything. And it's a trip line if you fall over and you stop. It's sad because you just jump over and you get to the ultimate, which is the Supreme Personality of God, is Krishna. So you just jump over and you come back to it later on, and it becomes all self-evident after a while once you get to the goal of studying. So the question is that you mentioned that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the cream, it's the end of the Puranas, it's the summary of all the Puranas, and we're studying this and it's so intricate and complicated. But one may ask a question is that when the Vedas were compiled, you just mentioned that it was like rooms and rooms full of them. It sounds like it'd take longer than a lifetime to actually read them before you can even understand them. So it really lends to one to think that there's too much information being put down there. So what would be the purpose of that, to have so much that it's more than we can handle? Maybe
in order to become expert in one Veda, it takes 12 years. There are scholars, they're known as Trivedis. They've studied the 3 Vedas. That means they've been studying for 36 years, if they've been able to study full time and all the way through. So yes, to study step by step minutely all of the Vedic literatures, you have to be very committed, very determined, and you come to a certain conclusion. Just to study is not necessarily the goal of life. There are many, many rules and regulations, and they can come down to, they're all subordinate to 2 rules. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So to always remember Krishna, there are 5 direct activities which are automatically in touch with Krishna. Deity worship, lovingly serving the deity. Chanting the holy names, again lovingly, attentively. Associating with devotees. Devotees, not just bodies and material, and not just seeing on the surface. I was with a devotee in the early days, and I was thinking, okay, he's a devotee, what's so special about him? So I just scratched under the surface a little bit and said, Prabhu, what's your realization? And he said, I'm praying that I never leave ISKCON. And now that becomes, to me, a very significant realization. At that time I thought, oh yeah, well, that's more than normal. He's special. Residing in a holy place, residing in a spiritual place. To reside in a holy place, residing in a temple, residing in an ashram, that's also, you wake up in the morning and you're surrounded by Krishna. That's a direct activity. Hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam attentively. You come to the class in the morning, okay, not that I've just done my duty, I was there for half an hour, but what can I learn? What message Narayani, who was visiting here, she described that when she's preparing and she's dealing with a particular area of the Srimad Bhagavatam, she starts to live the experiences that are happening at that time. So what experience are you going to have of the Absolute Truth through attending and hearing? You can prepare for Srimad Bhagavatam class. You can read the verse beforehand. You can hear what was said yesterday. You can get into the mood. So those 5 activities are direct. You directly, without even trying, you're remembering Krishna. Other things, all those other aspects of the Vedas, they're there and they are connected, but you have to be conscious of how they're connected. You have to make the conscious effort. Why have I got this type of shoe? Why have I got this type of bead bag? Keeps my beads clean. It's not directly connected with Krishna, but you're conscious of it. So I should keep it clean. Krishna's a person, so he likes things neat and tidy. I should do things in such a way. So that's direct access. The start of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's also the sages, and they say to the main speaker, please tell us what is the essence. Sharanam, what's the essence of the Vedas? So we can find there's trip lines that are going to confuse us. There's also little, what are those things? Not the glitches, there are caveats. There's little, you get a special, this is a real significant, they're like Shruti Phal, they're the fruits of the Vedas. You can find out little things that will give you a hint of the truth. And once one of our spiritual masters, he was asked a question, what's the best question? What's the most significant question that you should ask? And he responded at that time, that question which will remove your doubt. Your immediate doubt. What's stopping me from moving forward? So ask that question. Oh, great, now I can move forward again. I'm no longer in a funk. I'm no longer in a bind. I'm no longer in a rut. Just remove that doubt and you can move forward. Have faith. And at every moment we've got doubts. Doubting is healthy. It's a sign of intelligence. We're questioning. So we have a doubt, we ask. We put it aside, we write on a piece of paper. I need to ask about this. And that person that I've seen before, they're confident. They've dealt with that. So I can ask them, Prabhu, I'm suffering from this and I noticed you dealt with it. Can you give me some enlightenment? We should accept that dependent role and that we are going to be in the darkness. We can get befuddled. But there's always a way out. A loophole in the law. That was the word. So life is simple for those people who are wanting to keep it simple, but it can become very, very complicated if you want to just focus on all of the externals and the irrelevant things. If we just keep focusing on, well, how can I please Krishna? How can I remember Krishna? How can I serve Krishna? How can I connect everything to Krishna? Then that will serve us nicely. As I said last class, we shouldn't worry about the big things. We worried about the little things. Then Krishna will take care of the big things. We just look after our part. And Krishna will carry what we lack and preserve what we have. For one who has steady devotion. Unflinching in all circumstances. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Right, it's 8:30, time for breakfast, time for connecting. Prasadam is another direct form of serving Krishna. Honouring the foodstuff which has been lovingly prepared and offered to the Supreme Personality of God. Thank you very much for your attention. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.